This video shows how to add a transformation using the Cloudera Cyber Security Platform. In our squid traffic, we have extracted a URL. The URL is a combination of a domain name, a port name, and it might have some other information such as a full HTTP domain as it comes out of the squid access logs. So what we want to do is we want to be able to extract the domain name without any subdomains in it so that we can then use that name to look up for any threat intelligence that might be a hit for that particular domain without subdomains. So as the traffic comes in, we're seeing that we have the URL, and we need to change that URL and extract out just the domain without the subdomains. Right now we're not doing that, so let's take a look at what we need to do. So we need to create some Stellar. So Stellar is the moral equivalent of XL macro language for Metron. So what we're going to do here is we've pulled out some examples from our traffic that we're seeing. We have the URL. It looks something like this with www.dictionary.com:443. So let's take this example and see if we can write some Stellar that will create dictionary.com. So what we have here is a Zeppelin notebook with the Stellar interpreter. And what we can do is we can just put %Stellar as the paragraph type. We can enter some Stellar. We can click the play button here, and then that will interpret the Stellar and give us the result. So here we have the domain. We have a simple if statement, which is checking to see if it's a URL. So some of the URL values that we'll see in the field are actually, long drawn out HTTP requests, and others are just domain names and ports. So if it comes in as a full URL, we're going to use the URL to host to extract just the domain name from the URL. If it's not, then we're going to just simply use a split, and we're going to split the URL at the colon character, and that will give us the URL, that will give us the first part of the URL, which is the domain. Then we're going to use the domain remove subdomains method, which will help to get rid of everything but, for example, if it's www.dictionary.com, it'll get rid of the www. And so here we've tried this Stellar out, and we can see that it's returning the result that we want. So let's go ahead and copy this, because we know this is what we want to use. We're leaving out the first line, which is setting the URL. That is not necessary when we start to add it into the configuration for Metron, because that URL variable will actually be populated from the event itself. So let's go over to the Metron config UI. We're going to go in, we're going to click on the pencil to edit the squid sensor. And then the easiest way to add these types of transformations is to go to the advanced JSON view. And then we're going to scroll down to the sensor enrichment config. And this is the first time that we've added any transformations for this particular sensor. So we need to add just a little bit of boiler code for boiler Stellar. So we're just putting in a comma. We're going to add a Stellar colon, and then we're going to add some curly braces, and the Metron UI is going to populate this for us. So we have config colon and then square braces. So now we're ready to paste in our Stellar. So we paste in our Stellar from the Zeppelin notebook. We're going to add some quotation marks around each Stellar line, followed by a comma. So I'm going to do that for the second line. And then I'm going to add a new line of Stellar, which is to set the domain name to null, because I don't want that to appear in my final event. It's important to remember that any variable that we create in the Stellar config in these transformations, if it's not set to null at the end of the transformations, it will appear in the event that's coming out of the ingestion pipeline. So the Metron indexer and the Metron batch indexer will actually try to write that out to either your index or your HDFS file, and then finally onto Hive. So make sure that when you're adding in new fields here, that you also update your schemas to match. Okay, let's hit save here. We can see that there's no errors in our JSON that we've entered. You might see an X if there was any. So we're going to click save, and then we're going to save the sensor. Now we're going to go over to the Metron alerts, and let's go generate some traffic in our Squid proxy. So I just refreshed my browser. I'm going to go over here and look at my latest events. And now I can see that I have my URL, which is choices.trustarc.com:443. And we can see that my domain without subdomains is trustarc.com. And that's the kind of transformation that we were looking to create. Thank you very much for watching our video, and we look forward to the next time.